Joining us now to analyze today's headlines is Chenjerai Kumanyika. He's an assistant professor of communication studies at Clemson University in South Carolina. Hi, Chenjerai.
Hey, how you doing?
Now, U.S. officials have declared that North Korea was connected to the security breach of internal Sony emails that have embarrassed the media company and exposed their racist attitudes. The leaked internal communications by a group calling itself Guardians of Peace have proven so explosive that they've led to the cancellation of the release of the film The Interview, whose premise was an assassination attempt on the life of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Sony executives released a statement yesterday saying the company has, quote, been the victim of an unprecedented criminal assault against our employees, our customers, and our business. Meanwhile, civil rights groups are calling for the firing of Sony's co-chair Amy Pascal over jokes she made that they termed outrageously offensive. Now, Chenjerai, this whole flap is reminding me of what happened when Edward Snowden revealed the NSA's programs of spying. Instead of being angry at the NSA, officials were upset and threatened Edward Snowden with legal action. And in some ways, when we look at this story, it seems as though the hacker did us a favor by exposing Sony's racism to the light of day. What do you think?
I think you're right. This focus on North Korean hackers is really an attempt to shift the narrative away from Sony's ongoing problems with racism. You know, we don't have to romanticize North Korea in order to recognize that this film contains certain stereotypical patterns which are consistent with the problems Sony has had ongoing. You look at Amy Pascal's comments, even comments recently made by Sony executives in reference to Denzel Washington. And so we see them trying to shift this narrative away from their problems. But that's what we have to focus on, and not just Sony problems in the entertainment industry in general related to race.
And we will be doing in-depth coverage of the issue of diversity in Hollywood on our program next week. So I do hope our viewers and listeners tune in for that. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court decided yesterday not to take on a lower court's ruling over driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants in Arizona, effectively allowing licenses. A Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals had ruled unconstitutional Arizona Governor Jan Brewer's executive order barring licenses for young immigrants qualifying under the DACA program. That ruling now stands in what immigrant rights activists consider a major victory. Just 2 days earlier, however, the Supreme Court issued a ruling that could negatively impact people of color. In that case, a North Carolina police officer pulled over a car, mistakenly thinking that state law required 2 working brake lights, and then, upon searching the car, found a bag of cocaine. The court ruled that it's okay for police to, quote, make mistakes when they pull people over for searches in what Justice Sotomayor, the lone dissenter on the court, called, quote, a further eroding of the Fourth Amendment. Now, how do you, Chenjerai, view these 2 decisions?
Well, I think the sum total of these decisions is that we still have a right-wing conservative activist Supreme Court. And, you know, this sort of gesture toward a Fourth Amendment era is really particularly startling in light of the fact that around the U.S. people are calling for more police accountability and better policing practices. Now, in Arizona, we have a great victory in this battle for immigration rights, but we have to keep our eye on Jan Brewer because she still intends to appeal this in the Supreme Court.
And then finally, the Justice Department has announced that President Obama has commuted the sentences of 8 people, bringing his total to 18. The 8 were serving federal drug-related sentences. 4 of them were slated to die behind bars. The president also pardoned 12 people, bringing his total in that category to 64, which is actually far fewer than his predecessors. A commutation simply cuts short a prison sentence, while a pardon effectively cleans one's criminal record, making it easier to get employment and to have adoptions, etc. The investigative media group ProPublica said in 2011 that they found, quote, white criminals seeking pardons were almost 4 times as likely to succeed as those of other races, which prompted a study by the Justice Department. That study is still underway and is not expected to be completed until next year. Chenjerai, why is the president not pardoning more people? It seems sort of a mystery. Is this part of, you think, this constant democratic desire to appear, quote, tough on crime?
I think so, but it's kind of hypocritical because, as we know, when it comes to being tough on Wall Street crime, tough on, U.S. torture, abroad, and we don't see this. This president is very lenient when it comes to that kind of crime. But these commutations are a good first step. But what we ultimately need is policies which are going to deal with the racial discrimination in sentencing and other problems with sentencing, and are going to extend clemency to the thousands of prisoners who are serving these excessive sentences.
Well, Chenjerai, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you very much for having me.
Chenjerai Kumanyika is our daily Newsflash guest expert. He is an assistant professor of communication studies at Clemson University in South Carolina. This is Uprising, and we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Bill Fletcher Jr. will join us to discuss not only the thawing in relations between the U.S. and Cuba, but also other issues that have been in the news, notably here in the United States, the issues of race, racism, police brutality, Ferguson, and much more. Stay tuned.